Town Hall is a regular meeting of the town board, and we start out with attendance by our deputy clerk here and the Pledge of Allegiance. Then we'll have a brief presentation, public comment, and our agenda for the night.
On the roll call, Councilman Troy? Present. Councilman Divany? Councilman Valentine?
Here.
Councilman Batari?
Here.
Supervisor Stewart?
Here.
And Modesta Bader, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Esther, and thanks to everybody for coming out tonight. A copy of the agenda has been on the website for a little while yet. As mentioned before, we had a workshop meeting a week ago where most of the items were discussed and reviewed by the town board and department heads. So you'll pardon us if we move a little quick through some of the minor items and maybe pause for discussion on some of the larger ones. I wanted to start this meeting tonight just by reminding folks that we have a public hearing on August 15th related to the Town Code Section 12.3 and 12.4, which relates to historic areas. We've discussed this on multiple occasions, and when we get onto August 15th, we'll have a public hearing about those amendments. We have a presentation. This is just a brief kind of hello from Alex Becky. Alex, if you could just step up to the podium here for a minute, I'll introduce you. Alex is a gentleman who has been providing the town with services in the, as far as legislative advocacy and grant funding advocacy and other ways of representing the town's interests, chiefly in Albany. And I want to thank Alex for coming and joining us for a minute or two tonight. We have resolutions on tonight for approval, which are renewing your contract essentially because you've switched law firms, and because of that, the contract needs to be looked at and renewed with the new firm. So if you could just take a minute, the town board knows you already, the public may not. You are part of Orangetown, you represent our interests, so if you could just introduce yourself briefly.
Sure.
Just talk for a minute about your work, and then
Either this is a super high podium or there's a hole on this side of the podium here. But my name's Alex Betke. I'm an attorney in Albany, registered lobbyist, and I am with the law firm of Brown and Weinrob in Albany. Have been representing the town through various funding and other aspects as it relates to Rockland Psych Center and other property around the town on those issues for several years now. It's been an honor doing that, and I think we're really getting towards some good outcomes here in the near future. So that's
well, thank you.
Yeah,
I thought it was
thanks.
important that the public have a sense of the town uses contracts with a variety of folks to advance the public interest, and Alex is one of them. The town board members, we just had an executive session where we were talking about his contract. Are there any other questions or comments from town board members at this time related to Alex's services? That's Dennis?
No, we just appreciate whatever help Alex can give us in dealing with the powers that be up in Albany, which are not necessarily easy to deal with all the time. So keep up the good work up there.
thanks.
Thanks. I'll echo that comment, Alex. Thanks for your
Thank you.
your diligence, and safe trip home.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you.
So again, that was just a brief this presentation, kind of get to know you for Alex, and the town board has been working with him for a year or so. The next item on our agenda tonight would be our public comments, and I'll make a motion to open the public comment. Do I have a second from Paul Valentine? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We have a sign-in sheet, and I've got 4 people listed, and then if you have a comment to make that you didn't sign in to make, feel free to raise your hand and let us know your thoughts about agenda items, or if you need to go off script a little bit, try to keep it to a minute or two. First up would be Seth Reichland, dad of my one-time assistant, Elijah Reichland-Melnick, who's wonderful and who's now working up for Pattern for Progress. But welcome to Town Hall, Seth.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'll just say a few words briefly. I am with one of the local bike clubs, and we've also been working with both the state parks folks to open more parkland to mountain bikes. So this was tonight in reference to a so-called social trail connecting Tacamac and Nike Town Parks, which passes through county land. This actually, it's a piece of trail that's become very popular in the last year with hikers and dog walkers because the long path is frankly a mess and it's not well maintained. It gets extremely muddy for much of the year. So there's been a fair amount of foot traffic between Nike and Tacamac on the new trail, which the county just closed over the weekend. So there've been some emails back and forth with county officials. Mostly the issue has had to do with liability coverage for users of a trail. Those we think we can get to an accommodation with the county over required liability. But in the meantime, we'd love to keep it open to the extent that the town can be helpful. We'd love to keep it open for walkers. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
We'll probably swing back around to that topic in a minute or two. Eileen Larkin? How are you, Eileen?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for this 3-minute opportunity to talk to you. One of 2 3-minute opportunities I get to talk to you every month as a resident. Anyway, I'm here to talk about the Rockland Psychiatric Center dog shelter that existed at one time. I read this off the internet, and I shall read what I saw on the internet. It says, Save the Animals Rescue Team, start, number 1. Started in 1989. Actually, that's start number 2. Founded by a Marge Kane, who met Ellen Forwalk, an employee of the Rockland Psychiatric Center. They suggested start number 2, which stands for Save the Animals Rescue Team. By using a building on the premises, an abandoned building on the premises of the Rockland Psychiatric Center property. It was furbished with cages, dog runs, and the cat room. It was there for 13 years, which I guess would be around 2003. During this time, they had a great number of volunteers, grew, and they introduced a program for patients to socialize with the animals. When the psychiatric center was sold to Orangetown, Start 2 found a new home in Englewood, New Jersey. They are affiliated with PetSmart up in Nanuet for pet adoptions. Mrs. Kane and Ms. Forwalk continue to serve the shelter in Englewood. I bring that up because there's somewhere out there in the iCloud or whatever it is that's out there is an attempt to put the animal shelter on Western Highway, which is not an ideal location because of the noise from the trains and what have you. We have a lot of property on the psychiatric center property. We hope to be able to work with the High Tour to encourage them to put the shelter somewhere on the psychiatric center property. They need 2 or 3 acres. Perhaps we could then get Chase Morgan Stanley to contribute some money towards this project. We have a great number of animals that are out there that are not being neutered, that need to be adopted. And being that we did have a shelter there at one time, not so long ago, and being that the other part of this, which is that the patients there could participate and perhaps volunteer to walk the animals or do some kind of work, it would be a good thing to happen, not only for the animals, but for the people maybe that could be served at the psychiatric center property. And also the 3-minute buzzer. I get 6 minutes a month to talk to my elected officials. You only have 2 public meetings, right? Keep looking at it. You get 3 minutes per person.
Right.
It's not right. We, the people, elected you to hear us. Right, Mr. Troy?
I've been hearing you for too many years.
No, for too many years, that's what your problem is, Mr. You bear grudges, but at least you don't hide them.
Thank you, Eileen. Next up is Esther Baitler. Welcome, Esther, and thanks for leading us in the pledge. Esther has provided the town council with a letter.
Hi, my name is Esther Ann Baitler, and I'm a resident of Spark Hill. Tonight, I would like to address two issues. I feel very strongly that the buzzer issue should be done away with. When people get up to speak, they should be given a minimum of 10 minutes, especially if it's the older generation. It's rude to stop them after 3 minutes. I know in Clarkstown now, they get a minimum of 10 minutes. I think it's really rude to tell people, oh, you have up to 3 minutes. I mean, it's bizarre. I really think that this needs to be listened to and adhered to by everybody on the board. I really think you guys should think about doing away with this buzzer. It's not fair. When people want to speak on certain issues, they're entitled to it. And I think when you tell people, oh, you're done after 3 minutes, it's just not appropriate, it's not logical. And I know Dennis agrees with me on it, because he always agrees with me on everything.
Such an agreeable guy.
The other thing I would like to speak about, I'd like to know when we're going to get our new street lights. I have been noticing that the lights keep going on and off on Route 340. Why is it that Clarkstown got theirs ahead of us? That's not right. I think you guys should have collaborated and made sure that each town got it. No, I don't agree with George Homan for getting his first. I think Orangetown should have been up to bat on it. We've been waiting many years, and I keep hearing, yeah, it's going to happen, and nothing happens with it. People sit there and you laugh at me, and it's not funny anymore. It's a matter of safety. And I can only tell you, I'm speaking from my point of view as well as our new executive director. And he agrees that we need these street lights.
I think we all agree on that, Esther.
I mean, it's about time. The other issue, Andy, that I'd like you to call the county tomorrow, I want to know where our bus shelter is. I've called time and time again, Sue Myers, Mike Prendergast. No one calls me back. We deserve this. Our consumers want to be able to sit in the bus shelter waiting for the buses to come.
Yep, we agree that's important too. Absolutely.
Well, I'd like to know when that's going to be done. When is it going to take place?
We'll do our best to find out.
I would appreciate it from you,
Thank
Dennis,
you.
as well as Andy on this.
Thank you, Esther.
Venture is important as well as our consumers.
Yep.
I
All
know
right,
that
thank you.
Dennis always agrees with me on these issues. Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
Esther. Mr. Mandel? How are you, Michael?
Good, you want to
Welcome.
wait a minute?
Sorry, I didn't mean. Absolutely.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Supervisor Stewart, members of the Town Board. For the record, my name is Michael Mandel, a resident of Pearl River. Last meeting, Councilman Troy mentioned funding of the fireworks partially through the Pearl River Parking Authority funds. I brought that issue back to the members of the board of the Pearl River Parks and Activity Committee and whole volunteer organization, and unanimously it was agreed that we prefer to do it the way we're doing it now. We'd rather see the funds that are there used for repaving of the municipal lots, extending the sidewalks all the way down Main Street, down through Mel's, all the way up to John Street from the saloon as we get money in. So we think that would be the best method to improve the downtown district and possibly bring in additional businesses into the area. But thank you for the offer. We did appreciate that. Secondly, at the workshop on the agenda, there was an item that talked about the replacement for John Giardello an engineer who was the head of the buildings department with a salary of 130 to 160. I see it's no longer on tonight's agenda to be discussed or whatever, though I know it's been publicized. Hopefully it's been publicized in professional journals that engineers read. But looking at that proposal, it said looking for an engineer or an architect for that position. And several, maybe a month or two ago, one of the candidates for town supervisor mentioned an architect, a planner, or an engineer. Well, being a member of the planning board and going to the project review meetings where they discuss what's coming up, an engineer is the only one who we really need that can do the best job. And it appears, in my opinion, that we see all of a sudden the resolution talks about an architect, and somebody running for office says an architect. Just a question, and it's just, not stating that anything is wrong, but do we have an architect that we've already chosen that we may be putting into that position? And that's why it's been out there and requested by more than one person. So I think that's something that we should look at. But as a member that attends all these board meetings, it's an engineer that we need, not an architect. Because I see what architects do, but I see what an engineer does, and it's two totally different things. And that's what we need for the proper functioning of the planning and of all the boards within this town. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mandel. That's all the folks who signed in. By a raise of hands, yes, ma'am, on the left over here? Come on up to the podium. Yeah, just introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are.
Hi, my name is Chris Sweeney. I'm a resident of Pearl River, and I don't know if I had a question or a comment, but it was about what this gentleman just said. The job that the man, Mr. Giardello, is retiring from is a hugely important job in this town, and I really strongly feel like I've talked to a lot of friends in Pearl River residents that were not able to come tonight, that it's definitely an engineering position. They're two different jobs. I'm so glad that you just said that, sir. But I don't know how it gets advertised. I had a really hard time kind of finding it in the website. I don't know. That's all I wanted to say. Like,
Okay.
how does it get, somebody told me it actually gets put on a board in town hall.
We post things on the internet, but
All right.
we can respond to the
Okay.
question when
So
we
I
finish up.
guess my point would be, I would very strongly support it remaining an engineering job, because it's one of the most important jobs in the entire town, to be honest. And with everything that's happened in the past couple of years and everything that's going to be coming down the pike, I don't see how an architect could do that job personally. They're two different careers, entirely different training, different field altogether. So that's it.
Thank you for your comment. Appreciate it. And we'll update you on that search, which is very important for the town, in a minute. Yes, Allison.
Allison Sullivan, Blauvelt, New York. I'm here actually for a couple of reasons. First, to ask for an update on Aloof's progress and to see how far they've gotten with the installation of their new equipment and to mitigate odors. It was to be completed 8 weeks from the time they got their building permit, and I want to know when they got their building permit and when the 8 weeks deadline is. Second, an old project has resurfaced called Linen Choice. They want to build a 170,000 square foot warehouse with 12 to 18 open loading bays in 2 phases. This is a piece of land zoned LI, and it's bordering Murphy Court and the rail trail. This new business will bring in more truck deliveries daily, adding to the already congested 303 traffic. They stated as their business grows, it will expect 12 to 15 more trucks per day. This is an old application that dates back to 2001, same time that Murphy Court application was looking for approval. The entity disclosure form for this project states Aloof Plastics, and Brenner continues to say that it has nothing to do with Aloof Plastics, that it's Aloof Real Properties, and that they're 2 different things. That doesn't make sense to me. At the planning board meeting, Mr. Garvey made it clear that it was the fault of the Murphy Court residents that they bought there and that they didn't do enough research. Both applications were up around the same time. In fact, Murphy Court subdivision had to purchase property from Aloof to make the development happen, the zoning of some of the property had to be changed for the 11 homes to be built. All right, my questions are these. Shouldn't have the board recognize the potential problems putting a neighborhood next to an LI zone? What are each of your opinions on this? Do you think Orangetown will benefit from having Linen Choice in Orangetown? Do the pros outweigh the negatives? Do you know that 4 homes are for sale on Murphy Court now? And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. By raise of hands, anybody else here to speak? Yes, Carol, in front.
Hi, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm Carol Baxter from Palisades. I just have a couple short things. One is I want you all to know that the Palisades Community Center won the Rockland County Executive Historic Preservation Award
All right,
for
congratulations.
2017. We are so
Congratulations.
excited. We are really excited to be recognized for the work that we've done over there. And we actually are getting ready to add a small addition on the back of the building to help with, kitchen renewal, handicap bathroom, and also for storage. And I didn't realize that John Giardello is retiring, and I just want to say he's been very helpful. He's given us an ear when we've had questions about how to do different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to say that he's been very helpful in kind of figuring out this kind of complicated process. I also want to say I think the sidewalk on 340 is amazing. It looks beautiful. Thank you to Esther, who's been on this for how many years? Right, we're a tie score, right? And also, as we all know, that New York State Department of Transportation is being petitioned to come down for the Route 9W issues. I just hope that when this happens, that please, please, please have a meeting, if you can set up a meeting and not just a drive-through, because if they go 2 in the afternoon, he's not going to see anything. And I want to thank Chief Nolte for bringing down extra patrol people to get rid of the 10-wheelers on Oak Tree Road. He's been stopping a lot of them. And speeders. And Jim Dean and Mike Yanzoni have been very helpful in their discussing what the issues are at that intersection in Route 9W. So that's all I want to say, but it's really critical if we can have a meeting with them.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your good works in the community as well. I see a hand up there waving. Thank you. Blue blazer. That's you, sir.
Hi, my name is Don Simmons. I wanted to address you guys and ask exactly what you knew about the county closing the trail from Tacamac to Nike Base. Apparently, the county got involved and decided to close it. So I know this is a county issue, but I think we can tie it all together with all the bike trails and making the trails for hikers better up there also. I'm hoping that we come to some sort of understanding with the county and get that 2-mile piece of trail opened again. I know it's kind of hard to do anything. It's not your property, so that's nothing that you can do. But if you can help us with the county, that would be greatly appreciated. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, definitely take a look at that. Who's next? Alan? Alan Riff? Are you wearing your deputy supervisor hat or your?
Alan Riff, Tappan. I'd like to address item number 5 on the agenda and urge the town board to support this. As you know, New Planet Waste Fuel Facility is going to locate in Stony Point, and they're going to convert garbage into fuel. They're going to have 400 trucks going through the county every day, carrying 4,500 tons of garbage. Most of the garbage is going to come from New York City and south of here. This means that they're going to travel on 303 and 9W and could have a potential impact on Orangetown. The byproduct of this gasification process is going to be 100,000 gallons of diesel fuel each day. It's the highly combustible Bakken fuel that we currently have on CSX. When you see those black cars going through town, it contains that fuel. It's estimated that they're going to have 100,000 gallons of this fuel going through Orangetown each year. Coupled with that, there's going to be a high-powered wire built parallel to CSX. And there's again the potential for an explosion. Not to be an alarmist or anything else, but I think we have to look at this very carefully. So again, I urge the board to support this memorialized resolution to the state of New York, to our representatives, urging them not to allow this to occur and impact on our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Who else would like to speak? I see a hand in back. Is that Heather? Yep. Come on up, Heather.
Good evening, Heather Hurley. I just wanted to first thank you as well to continue what Alan said about the resolution to oppose the proposed new Planet Energy gasification plant in Stony Point. I think it's really important that the town really states their opposition to this project and join the town of Haverstraw. I think they're also opposed to this, as these trucks would be directly going through Haverstraw as well. Secondly, I just wanted to say that this past Monday, upon visiting the building department to review planning board documents, I learned that despite the statement on the town website about position vacancies being posted on the bulletin boards of all town of Orangetown buildings, the position of the building director was nowhere to be found. Both offices in the building department didn't have copies, and Cheryl Coopersmith even stated that it wasn't a civil service position. Upon going to town hall that same day, the job was not posted on the bulletin board outside of the clerk's office as well, despite about 6 other jobs being posted there. I just would like to know why the job was not on either of the bulletin boards when I visited them. And I'd also like to know what online job search links was this job posted on. Now, it's 2017, and I would expect that the town board would have insisted that this job be posted on relevant job sites to attract the best of the best for this important position in the town. So if you could let us know where exactly those would have been posted. I also just wanted to see if an explanation could be given why the job description is expanded to include and/or a licensed architect, kind of just echoing what some of the past speakers have said here tonight, and what would be the reasoning behind this. And being that it's one of the most important jobs in the town, why wouldn't the board insist that this new building director be an engineer? And lastly, just for the record, I just wanted to state that at the July 12th planning board meeting, I just for the record wanted to oppose that an interpretation made by John Giardello for the notification guidelines for planning board meetings. It was brought up they were only residents within 200 feet were notified. The section 21A 14.1 says the 500-foot provision involves sand pits, landfill, and excavation operations, all of which are not in accordance with the construction of buildings, structures, or roads. They are removing a 5,000-gallon storage tank from a landfill, and Mr. Magrino deferred to John G's interpretation of this, and I just wanted to state on the record that I was opposed to this interpretation. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else here to speak tonight during public comment? Seeing no hands waving, I'll make a motion that we close the public comment period. Do I have a second over here? Yep. Jerry, all in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Town board traditionally tries to respond and provide some clarifications or answers where possible. There's always some questions that we receive or comments that require a bit of research, and we appreciate the opportunity to hear about those in writing or via email to get facts back to people. But Paul, do you want to lead off, or do you have any particular?
No.
Anybody want to start?
I'm used to going last. My name is
Okay.
Valentine.
Valentine.
Mr. Mandel, I thank you for going to your committee. I still don't agree, but listen, Yeah, the committee does a great job. As a matter of fact, the fireworks this year were excellent. I thought much better than last year. I was disappointed last year. Love the fireworks, so whatever you guys are doing this year, keep doing that. That's great. As far as the building director, I agree. It's a very, very important position. Through the years I've been here, what we have done is we have, and again, Andy could talk about what exactly was done on this particular job. But in the past, we have reached out to get the best people to apply for the jobs here. As a town board, we have been part of the interviews to make sure that we're hiring, the best people. And I expect to be the same thing on this particular position, because it is that important. As far as being an architect versus an engineer, it's a thing, somebody else on the board asked for that. That was not me. But at the same time, it's a thing where, in terms of the people, I'll look at their credentials, what they have and what they bring to the plate and what they can do for the town. There are architects that I've seen in here. I wouldn't put them in charge of a building department. I wouldn't, because just the nature of their job. But there may be somebody out there that actually has a broader perspective than a regular architect. I just saw an email today that we have 6 resumes. They narrowed it down to 6 resumes, and we will interview 6 people, and I will be part of that process. So I'm in agreement that it is that important, and we'll make sure that we get the best person in here. Thank you.
I'm starting with bikes because it's at the top. I just leaned over before and asked Dennis, and I had no idea that the county had pulled out or stopped us from going between. They really asked us to give a blessing, if you will, but really what they were doing was up to them and had nothing to do with the town of Orangetown connecting the two. So as of now, I really can't comment on that. Other than that, as far as John G's position, I do believe it should be a PE. I think that's what the public wants, and I think that's the way it should be. However, if there are other applications that do come in, I think that we interview everybody, and you narrow it down as you go along. Maybe Donna, you can explain who we went out to. I know that I can't reiterate everybody that went out to, but it did go out as usual to all the different professional magazines and announcements. Allison, I don't know. I had heard different things about Murphy Court. I had know when it happened. I knew there was development going up there. I didn't know it was going next to the property that, actually at that time, I had no idea who owned that property. And I thought that that was a buffer for anything else beyond that. How that happened and what, I don't know. I will try and find out, but I have no idea, at this point anyway. And yeah, no, that's pretty much it. Okay.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
We always get a lot of great questions and comments from folks, so I'll just start at the top as well. As far as the trail goes, it's county land. It's unfortunate that they tried to cover up the trail because they haven't been able to get a maintenance agreement with the mountain bikers who would like to maintain it. I hope that they work something out. I'll help to hopefully contribute to that, but ultimately it's a county park and a county trail. The animal shelter, Eileen's brought up, a number of people have mentioned it. The animal shelter is really, really important. And the town has a contract with High Tour. We're working with High Tour. But most importantly, High Tour itself has its own plans for raising money and doing something about their facility, which is in a decrepit state. And it's really a shame for both the volunteers and staff and for the animals. And their plan is to move to the site next to Homes for Heroes, where they've gotten a welcome from the veterans there. That's their plan. The idea of bringing them to Rockland Psych really needs to be brought to the animal shelter. It's not, they have a board of directors, they have a president, they have staff, and they have a plan, and that's their plan right now. And I hope that they succeed in it, because the situation they face up there in Pomona is fairly dire, and the town has a contract with them, and it's just a small part of their overall budget, and they've got their financial issues they got to work out. But I hope that they just do succeed in building a new facility. Just on the LEDs, as to the street lights project, I know that it seems like it's taking forever. It's actually getting done, and the contracts are going out, and we're getting bids on the fixtures, and it will get there. Probably by the end of the year, you'll see some real progress as far as new fixtures. Clarkstown did it before we did it, and we're getting a better deal because we learn from their deal, and that's sometimes the best way of doing things. As far as the building department goes, it was, the bulletin boards, as someone pointed out, the internet is where the postings really matter, but it should have been on bulletin boards around town facilities, and it was posted, perhaps not on all of them. But the most important thing is that we do have some good responses, and we do have a process for weeding out the duds and reviewing the good ones. We have a mix of architects and engineers. There are engineers who applied who really have no experience in planning or zoning. There are architects who applied who don't know anything about engineering. So we hope to find the right person for the job. And in my personal view is it's really most likely to be an engineer, but it's nice to cast a net that's wide enough to catch some really great people. And we're scheduling interviews internally, and we're going to make progress on that in the next week or so. I'm going to stay away from aloof for a minute. It's been such a complex story, and I appreciate what Alice is saying. The new project over there, there really shouldn't be an LI zone right next to a residential zone. And the history of why that is so there, whereas in most places in the town you have a LO zone that separates LI from residential, is an interesting story in itself. I know Alan Riff did a little bit of research on that. You can certainly talk to him after the meeting as to the history of the zoning in that area. I agree with you, Carol. We need to meet with the DOT and really press our case for the improvements that you and your group, our highway department, police department, and others have really advocated. Improvements to the intersection of Oak Tree Road and 9W, moving the pedestrian signal, changing the timing so that people can make that left turn, dealing with the parking regulations opposite the filling station to cut down on the amount of people trying to run back and forth across the road. These are issues. The sidewalk project obviously was a huge step forward, but there remain some safety issues, and Jim Dean, our highway superintendent, and others are well aware of that and working on it. I think I'll leave it there. Actually, I think we've got some great comments. I don't think there's anything else major to address. We appreciate the support for the resolution about New Planet Energy. I think that's going to be a big land use battle in the northern part of the county. It does have implications for Orangetown as far as traffic goes. It'll be interesting to see how that project evolves. But for right now, I'd like to move on to our regular agenda.
No, I'd like to go.
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. I'm sorry.
I told you,
Didn't mean to cut you off.
my last name's Valentine. I always get to go
Yeah.
last, all right?
Saving the best for last.
As far as the bike trails, I knew nothing about that until tonight's meeting. So, or actually, when I spoke to Andy this afternoon about tonight's meeting, that the county had decided to close their portion of the trails. And I think it imperative that you gentlemen go up to the county and to your county representatives and speak to them about the county park. We did show our support for bikers using the passive parks in Orangetown already. You could see how much the county took that into consideration when they decided to close the trails on you this weekend. But it's their parks. You got to go talk to them. So you got 3 local representatives on the legislature. You can go speak to each of them and to County Executive Ed Day. But I would go up to their meeting and discuss your frustration about them closing that portion of the park. Pearl River Fireworks, great job again, Mike. I always enjoy, I think you guys do an unbelievable job with the fireworks, and they were, as Dennis said, excellent this year. They were really, really good. They seemed to last a lot longer, and they went a little higher, and it was just a great night. It was really enjoyable. As far as replacing John Giardello, that is a huge position to be filled, and one of the most important in the town, if not the most important, in my opinion. My opinion is also that we should be open and cast a wide net. I don't think an engineer is the be-all, end-all, and I'm going to tell you why. First, I think the interpretation of our codes is extremely important, as well as engineering feat. Knowing all of the building codes, the energy codes, the state and local codes, and applying them. Even as Ms. Hurley said tonight, she disagreed on John's interpretation of things. He's an engineer, but he still has to interpret the code. So I go to building departments throughout the tri-state area. In fact, I spend much too much time doing paperwork and handing in stuff for building permits throughout the tri-state area. Majority of the building department heads are not engineers. They're code enforcement officers, and any sizable project that goes before our town is sent out for an outside engineering review. So John's not reviewing every project from an engineer's standpoint. That's sent out to an independent company that has to provide the planning board and the zoning board with their stamp of approval on that. So I think it's important that we get the most qualified person that knows the codes and that will have Orangetown and Orangetown residents' best interest at heart, whether it's an engineer or an architect. As far as I know, we got 6 resumes back. Some of them, the majority of them, excellent, both engineers and architects. And I think we should look at each of them independently and see what they have to offer. I don't think you put your blinders on and pick someone because of their profession. There's a lot more to it, to running a good building department. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I go to other building departments throughout the county and the state and our adjoining states, our building department is a little bit antiquated when it comes to any kind of blueprints being on computers, CAD drawings, filling out forms, knowing what information you need. Almost every other building department, I could do everything online. I can't do that here. So I think this is a good opportunity for the town to find the right person to take our building department into the next century, or into this century, and then into the next century. That's my personal feelings on that. Murphy Court, I wish I had an answer for you. I was nowhere involved in the town, but it had to be a little bit of a red flag, at least to the developer, that he was buying property from aloof. So he sort of took advantage of those poor people who bought those houses. I wasn't part of the town. I wasn't part of I didn't even have a thought of running for office or being involved in the town, so I can't give you an answer on how that was allowed. Looking back, do I think it was a good thing? No, I think it was a horrible idea. And I agree with Andy, there should have been a buffer zone in between. But somebody knew, especially the developer, if he was buying property from aloof, what he was doing. What else? I think that's about it. I think I covered it.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight and offering your comments and perceptions for the town board. And again, when you have very specific questions, and I know you do email them, but try us in between meetings, and we'll get you information whenever possible. So turning now to our agenda items, we're just going to run through some that we've already talked about. If we have to have more discussion, that's fine. The first item, and I'll just briefly introduce it, this is a contract for a bicycle safety study. And the town put out a request for proposals, got responses, interviewed, and that we had a little committee with the highway department on there, Alan Riff, Vicky Caramonte, and others. And we've got a great group here. This is for $40,000, which was the grant that we got, going to provide some really great consulting work. And it's an invitation I just want to make publicly, and will continue to do so, that anybody who's really interested in, especially from the family perspective, just kids going to school or going to the park, participate in this study. There'll be a survey. Fill out the survey. And I've asked Alan Riff to kind of lead up our trying to get as many people to fill out the survey as possible, and making sure that we collect a lot of information about where people are bicycling and what the issues are, and get some good advice from our consultant. And so I'll offer that. With that explanation, I'll make a motion to approve this resolution to hire this company, Parks and Trails in New York. Do I have a second? I have a second for Valentine. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. Thank you, guys. Now, just following on that, even though it's a grant, we do have to allocate the money up front to get going. And so the next resolution is allocating $40,000 for the bike study. Do I hear a motion for this one? We'll share the treat. You want to make a motion for this one? Dennis, second from Jerry Bottaro. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Numbers 3 and 4 have to do with our government relations representation. Alex Becky, who was here earlier, thank him for his service. We want to continue when he moves to his new company. So number 3 is the termination of our agreement with Jackson Lewis, which was the law firm he was at. I'll hear a motion from Councilman Valentine for this, second from Jerry Bottaro. All in favor, say aye. And then a resolution for a new agreement with his new company, Brown and Weintraub. Dennis, do you want to make a motion for this one? Okay. Second from myself. All in favor, say aye. The ayes have it. Number 5. This is the resolution about the big waste gasification and promises to bring hundreds of trucks filled with trash up into Stony Point. I'll make a motion for this resolution. Do I hear a second? Yeah, second. From Dennis Troy.
Yeah, I don't need candidates to tell me what to vote on this thing here. And that, when I lived in Dutchess County, before I moved back down to Rockland County, that was one of the things that we fought in my neighborhood, is where they were trying to do garbage from 16 counties that was going to be right down the road for me. And that same issue with the number of trucks, not so much that you have with the Bakken oil, which is definitely a major concern. So, yeah, I'll probably second this motion.
All right, thanks for the second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. I mean, to clarify, they turn the trash into biodiesel, which would presumably go on trains right down through Orangetown. Number 6 is the Spark Hill Palisades Fire District application to be lead agency on their project there at the firehouse. Do I hear a motion in support of this from Paul Valentine, a second from Jerry Bottaro? All in favor, say aye. So I wish them good luck with their project. Number 7, this is, again, we discussed this last week. This is an agreement with MedAir, environmental chemist Sander Bonville, to provide recommendations for updating our performance standards code as it pertains to emissions, vibration, noise, and things like that. It's a technical review of our performance standards to make sure they're up to date, which in some regards they really are not. I'll make a motion for this. I hear a second from over here. Bottari, all in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Number 8 is kind of formalizing the proposal that this doesn't guarantee we get the money, but we did talk to Senator Carlucci. The sidewalk project is a very reasonable and good thing for the state to support. And so with this resolution, you're authorizing myself and Vicki and town staff to submit an actual application for state funding for a sidewalk project on Oak Tree Road near Route 303, where there's a bit, and Jim talked about this last week. I mean, the sidewalks along Oak Tree Road, they've really come a long ways in recent years, but there's still a gap or two, and this is a critical gap between Route 303 and the entrance to the rail trail, which is just east of there. So I'll make a motion that we accept this resolution. I'll take a second, maybe from over here. Paul, all in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it, so we'll submit that and hope for the best. Maybe Alex can help move it along. Number 9 and 10 are both agreements related to cybersecurity on the recommendation of our IT director. I just want to recognize Anthony Bevilacqua sitting back here. Thank you for keeping your eye out for the town. These 2 resolutions enable the town to accept the free service of kind of a cybersecurity evaluation. So I'll hear a motion for number 9 from over here, or maybe from Dennis, since he does IT work, and a second from Jerry. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And number 10, same story. I'll make the motion myself. Paul, you want a second over here? All in favor, say aye. Aye. And thank you, Anthony, for getting that going. Number 11 is from the town clerk, accepting and filing various town documents, and they're listed there. There's 5 of them. Make a motion for that. Here's a second from Jerry. All in favor, say aye. Thank you very much. Number 12 is the declaration of surplus vehicles, which will be declared as surplus, and some of them will be auctioned, and some of them are just, they're really no good, and they're to be donated to the local fire departments for training purposes. And there's a list here of the various vehicles and what their destinies are. Do I hear a motion for this from over here? From Jerry Batari, second from Dennis Troy. All in favor, say aye. Number 13 is permission for Police Officer Madalena to go to a training, and it's described here. It's juvenile officers training for a small cost. And we'll make a, maybe we hear this from Jerry as a retired police officer. A second from myself. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Number 14 is accepting the resignation retirement of Detective Michael P. McPadden after many years of service to the town. Who would like to make a motion for this? Jerry? A second from Dennis Troy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. I know town board members had very positive comments about Detective McPadden at our last meeting and appreciate his service to the town. Number 15 is assistance for the Colonial Day in Japan. I'll make a motion for this. Here, a second from over here. Valentine, all in favor, say aye. Thank you. 16, very importantly, the adopt a spot agreement for Linda Lane Gardens. This comes from the Highway Department as well. I'll hear a motion over here from Dennis, second from Batari. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Number 17 is another adopt a spot agreement with the Country Deli, which we talked about last week. A little bit of history there. One of the longer standing businesses in town. And we thank them for their beautification efforts. I'll make a motion for this. Here, a second from Paul Valentine. All in favor, say aye. The ayes have it. Declaration of surplus vehicles from the Highway Department. There's 4 listed here. I'll make a motion for this. Here, a second from Batari. All in favor, say aye. Thank you. Thank you guys for that, and Jim for seeing that we get a little bit of money back for these used vehicles. Number 19 is lending assistance for the Rockland County Gaelic Athletic Association events on July 22nd. Do we hear a motion over here for Gaelic Athletic from Dennis Troy, second from Paul Valentine? All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Beautiful new clubhouse over there. Number 20 is a bid for heating, ventilation, and mechanical services for Johnson Controls. I thank Eric Gorton for putting those bids out, reviewing them, and getting us a good deal, which we talked about last week. I'll make a motion for this contract. We have a second over here from Paul. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And stop me, please, if there's discussion or questions. Number 21 is the authorization of GHC engineers to provide further responses to a report that was sent to the DEC that DEC has questions about. And Joe Moran, who's right here, there he is. Joe, is Commissioner Seward, overseeing this, and it comes from his department. Do I hear a motion for approval of this one? It adds $2,850 to their contract. From Dennis Troy, do I hear a second? Batari, any discussion? I know there was a little bit of email back and forth on this. You're voting against it, okay. Do you want to talk about that, or you just want to vote? I'm fine. Okay, all right. You guys don't know my reasons. Yeah, I know. I think the concern was that there's, that this is an addition which might have been anticipated in the first scope and avoided. But nonetheless, we need to get this response back to the DEC. I think we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. I'll vote aye on that one. We have 1 nay, which is Valentine.
Is this a roll call? No. Okay, so just, okay, 1 against, okay.
So the motion passes 3-1. And Paul, I appreciate your concern about that, and I know that we went back and forth with Joe on email a little bit, and certainly on notice to double check these contracts in the future. Number 22 is, and 23, both have to do with personnel. I thank Donna for coordinating our personnel department. Number 22 is creating a position of the real property appraiser assistant in the assessor's office. Do I hear a motion for this one from over here? Dennis, second from Jerry. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right with that. And number 23 is, after that reclassification, putting Hugh Davies, who's been working for the town, in that, that new title. I'll make a motion for that. Do I hear a second? Troy, all in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank him for his service. Number 24 is a recommendation of Personnel Department to amend an earlier resolution on a personnel item that had a mistake or error in it based on an outdated salary schedule to reflect slightly different salary. I'll make a motion for this one. Do I hear a second? Second from Batari. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Number 25 and 26 are both grant-related. There's been some evolution in the specifics of this language just because Sylvia Welch, our grant-writing consultant, and Stefan Muno down at the Highway Department, who's wonderful, and Vicky Caramonte, and there's just been the need to sort of chase after some deadlines and put together some pretty complicated budgeting and paperwork. And so you might have seen some revisions in this resolution. The first one, number 25, is simply to pay Sylvia for her efforts, which I feel like she should be charging us more for at this point. But I'll make a motion for this. To hear a second to pay Sylvia $650 for her runaround. Second for Valentine. All in favor, say aye. We thank her for that. She's really a godsend. And number 26 is the actual town resolution on the application to the State Department of Environmental Conservation. And you'll remember that a year or so ago, we succeeded in getting money to design a new culvert for where the driveway from Innovation Plastics goes over the Sparkhill Creek to Route 303, where water backs up. We've all seen it flooding on Mountain View Avenue and the intersection and Route 303, right where school buses and a lot of traffic needs to get through. And so having gotten the design paid for, now we're going to try to get some state money to offset the cost of the actual improvement to that culvert and enable the water to flow through there with some associated benefits for the stream's health as well. That's mainly a flood prevention project. And the target funder here is the Climate Smart Communities Grant. And you may ask what this has to do with climate. The Climate Smart Communities is a great program. This particular grant request is really a flood mitigation request. And the overall cost of the project, I think, is in the neighborhood of $350,000. And a good chunk of that is value that the town provides in in-kind services by essentially town staff overseeing the construction process. And so I just want to thank once again Vicki and also Sylvia Welch and Stefan Muno, and I'm sure others, for generating all the details related to the application. And so just to be clear, when we talk about 50% of the total project, that 50%, which is a town cost, which really is a town cost, isn't so much money out of pocket, it's the allocation of town labor and other related resources to get the project done. And to the extent that Jim and the engineering can do that as a part of their routine, then it doesn't add that much to the cost of running to the town. But at the same time, it is a valuable project, and it is in addition to the work they would be ordinarily doing. I'll make a motion that we submit this grant. I'll hopefully get a second over here. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have
I'm
it.
sorry, who seconded that?
I think I got it from, I'll give it to Dennis. A warrior for the environment, if there ever was one. Thank you for the support on that. The number 27 is, and by the way, the town has invested enormously in mitigating the flooding on the Sparkhill Creek, whether it's the green infrastructure projects or all the drainage work the Highway Department does. A lot of the work that the drainage work in terms of planning and floodplain assessment that the building department does. The Sparkhill Creek, because it drains into the Hudson River and the Piermont Marsh, for that and other reasons, rates pretty highly as a fundable project area. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to go after flooding problems on the Cherry Brook, on Muddy Creek, and in other areas of town as well. And so we're on the lookout for ways of funding those capital projects externally wherever possible. Number 27 is the, let's see, we had an announcement of setting the public hearing. this is the circulation of the notice, right? We're circulating notice for the public hearing on the amendments to the town's historic district, which we've discussed several times before. Hopefully it won't disappear from our collective memory by the time this public hearing comes around. But it had to do with sign design and kind of giving people a chance to find out about proposed demolitions in time to talk to people about them. I'll make a motion for this public hearing. Do we hear a second? From Valentine, all in favor say aye. Thank you very much. 28 is the entity disclosure law, which Rob Magrino and Tom Divany and other folks worked on, exists as a law, and this resolution is to clarify and adopt a form that applicants of the building department must fill out saying who they are if they're a business entity and have multiple partners and interested parties. And that disclosure, I know the entire town board was interested in that. And so I talked to Rob Magrino about this today, and essentially they've had some success with the initial format for the form, but based on that pilot of the form and folks coming in and filling out, wanted to change it a little bit. And this adopts a revision to that, if I understand it correctly. So do I hear a motion for this approval of this disclosure form from Jerry Batari? Second from Dennis Troy. All in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you. Number 29 is setting a date for budget presentations. This is really, it's not that we have to, actually no, because it's a Saturday. So we'll be having a town board meeting on Saturday, September 9th, I hope. This is more or less the same time every year where we ask our department heads to come in and speak to the town board directly in a kind of a marathon session about what's going on in the departments and what their budget pictures look like. And so this is, I just want everybody to put it on their calendar, make sure this is going to work. I know we circulated this and we looked at it during the workshop. Hopefully that works for everybody. We'll have some breakfast treats and maybe a little bit of pizza. And we're working on the schedule. I want to just reflect my appreciation for Kim Allen and also Vicky for handling logistics on that. And we'll sign up all the departments. We'll have overflow presentations during regularly scheduled town meetings before or after. And in the meantime, just remain cognizant that the town board asks its department heads all to provide options for reduction in their budget, flat, and modest increase. So we'll be looking at those. And the supervisor's budget is due later in September, and the budget process will wrap up in mid-November with a final budget adoption. So I'll make a motion for this Saturday meeting. It'll be a special meeting. Do I have a second on that? From Troy, all in favor say aye. That works for everybody? Great. I just want to thank also Alan for walking through the budget process with me every year for the last 5 budgets, I guess. And I think we've done some great work. We've provided the town board always with a very austere and challenging budget, and we'll see how we do this year. But thank you for your help with that, Alan, and working with Jeff and the finance team and all the department heads. Hopefully our fondness for each other will survive the exercise once again. Last but not least is the payment of vouchers. Speaking of budgets, we have our finance director at the podium with a long list of bills to pay. Jeff, please.
Sure. Tonight's audit consists of 6 warrants for a total of $1.2 million. The first warrant had 2 vouchers for $6,400. That was to close out the Mitsubishi construction contract. Second warrant had 192 vouchers for $137,000 for Medicare reimbursements. The third warrant had 53 vouchers for $158,000 for utilities. The fourth warrant had 1 voucher for $376, and that was for the Homes for Heroes deed filing. The fifth warrant had 6 vouchers for $3,900, additional Medicare reimbursements. And the sixth warrant had 363 vouchers for $928,000, of interest. Number 1 and 2, applied golf contracts. Number 7, Capasso, $48,000 for recycling. Number 9, CSEA Employee Benefit Fund, $29,000 for dental. Number 10, DeLage London, $13,000 for golf cart leases. Number 11, Ennis Paint, $19,000 for highway traffic paint. Number 12, ESC Environmental, $11,000 for sewer chemicals. Number 19, O'Connor Davies, $24,000 for the audit. Number 21, Seal Coat USA, $37,000 for highway coatings. And number 24, the State Comptroller, $34,000 for justice fines. Any questions on the audit?
Thanks, Jeff. I'll make a motion for passing that. Do I have a second? All from Jerry Bottari, all in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. We just spent $1.2 million. And Jeff will have a sheet of paper for us to sign regarding that. I know that our town attorney, John Edwards, had asked us to do a brief executive session regarding our contract negotiation with J.P. Morgan Chase for selling 60 acres of town land for the data center project. So we're going to want to do that. Are there any other items for public discussion that you guys want to just bring out? Department heads, anything burning that needs to be discussed? All right. Not seeing any hands waving. I will make a motion for executive session and then list our adjournments here. So I'll make a motion for executive session to discuss our contract negotiations with J.P. Morgan Chase. So I have a second. Over here, Troy, all in favor say aye. Aye. You guys have it. So we're going to do that. We're going to also adjourn right now because when we won't be coming back to conduct more town business. There's no votes, no discussion, no nothing besides this last matter that we want to talk about of necessity privately. So in the memories, bless you, of 4 individuals from the town of Orangetown who passed away, Bob Wolf, a South Nyack resident and very, very well known nationally as a sports newscaster, sorely missed by his family in South Nyack. Help me out with the pronunciations here. Michael Casalvi, hopefully I got that right, son of Nick and Christine Hogan at Hogan's Diners, where I had breakfast this morning with my family, actually. Sorely missed. William DeBerry of Tapan, acclaimed scholar of Asian thought, a leader in the development of Asian studies, and Reverend Hank Bukima of Upper Grandview, New York. Any town board comments? Hearing none, in the names of these individuals, I'll make a motion that we adjourn our meeting tonight. Do I have a second? Over here, Valentine, all in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. And so again, we'll have an executive session.